When people think of anime like Bakugan Battle Brawlers, Pokemon or Digimon, they tend to think of a fun Saturday morning cartoon that you'd watch, after school rather than, doing your homework, which to be fair, is kinda right. However, under the surface of these fun monster battling animes are moments or even entire story arcs which show the more deeper side to the anime, which makes the characters feel way more relatable. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about my personal favourite example of this, the Doom Dimension arc in Season 1 of Bakugan Battle Brawlers. So quickly, for some context, Dan loses a battle to Masquerade, and because he lost a battle, his Bakugan Drago gets sent to the Doom Dimension, but Dan, being the guy that he is, runs into the portal and gets sent to the Doom Dimension as well. And then eventually, all the other brawlers do the same, and then they all end up in the Doom Dimension. And now the 6 ancient warriors of Destroyer see this and they're like, we can get you out of here, but you have to pass these tests. And this is what I'm going to be talking about for the entirety of this video, so strap in. On the surface, Julie, the Subterra Brawler, is often portrayed as the most confident member of the group, but that bubbly and cheerful energy hides a really sad story. Julie often feels overshadowed by her older sister Daisy, feeling less confident because she's a bit of a klutz and not generally as skilled as her. This is what Clave targets in her trial. He cracks her usual smile and optimism and bubbly attitude and really hits her with the overshadowing that she really felt as a child, leading her to nearly break down. But despite all of this, Julie keeps on fighting by embracing her own identity and not basing it off of anyone else, and eventually beats the trial. Now personally, I really relate to Julie a lot, being the klutz of the family and not exactly being any good at anything like music, academia, or really anything applicable other than this YouTube channel. And I'm also technically an only child. But I personally felt this because the cousins of my family being compared to me all the goddamn time and being told, you need to be like your cousin dickhead because he does this and that, and then being the butt of every joke and laughing stock at school. This particular episode really hit me hard in 2019 when I rewatched Bakugan. In the Bakugan Battle Brawlers, I would personally compare Marucho to being kind of like Batman in the Justice League, since he literally invents all of the inventions, funds the entire team, and literally creates his own like Justice League base thing for the Bakugan Battle Brawlers in his own house, and kind of just being the brains of the whole squad really throughout most of the series. However, with one really sad thing about Marucho is he constantly struggles with his identity and self-worth. Marucho himself is a great guy, but internally, he really hates his past self. Before discovering Bakugan, he was a kid that was just constantly studying. Being the sole heir to, a business conglomerate family means that he has to study a heck of a lot in order to actually be able to manage the business later in life. But instead of, telling his parents that, he wants to actually enjoy his life, he ends up just kind of just smiling, continue to make, study because that's what makes his parents happy. By the way, there's also this one line that his parents say in the anime, which is kinda diabolical.
You don't have the time to fritter away like the other children. I'm sure you understand, don't you, Marucho?
Yes, Father, I understand.
When Frosh tests Marucho, he brings an older version of himself to the fight, as in as in an older version of Marucho. Not like a literal older version, but like, younger Marucho, as in, you get one. The version of Marucho that current Marucho hates. The Yes Child. This test for Marucho is more about being an assertive member rather than just throwing out suggestions and them being ignored. Which in turn leads to Marucho being, in my opinion, one of the best characters in the series, and also causing Preyas to poop out another Bakugan, which that was interesting, let's just say that. Hey there guys, just letting you know, if you want to see some more Bakugan content like this, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel more directly, follow to the link tree down below where you can find all the social medias, the Discord server, and where you can support the channel directly on Ko-Fi. And if you want to, you can send me, preferably not Anthrax, through the app called Throne, which by the way, sounds very weird to say. Anyways, back to the video. For a character that rarely shows emotion like Shun, his trial episode really forced him to bring out his emotional side. In the episode, he ends up meeting a child, and she kind of asks him to play with him. At first, Shun's like, nah. But then eventually he starts playing with her, and we actually get some sort of happiness from him. Shun is a lone wolf type character. He tends to fight on his own and not really rely on anybody rather than himself and his Bakugan Skyrus. The reason for this isolationist mentality is from him, due to his upbringing really. He lost his mother at a young age, and because of this his granddad became his sole caregiver, but instead of comforting a grieving child, he forced him into harsh ninja training. forcing him to not show emotion because emotion is weakness. This explains why throughout the series he's kind of like the way he is. Due to this, so-called ninja training, Shun is a really cool and calm collected character during battle, outsmarting his opponents and being, the resident cool guy at the Bakugan Battle Brawlers, aka Mr. Hotshot himself. However, Oberus forces him to confront that idea that his granddad grilled into him as a grieving child, by literally making him fight an illusion of his own mother, while she tells him to stay in this world so they can be together. For a child that lost his mother, seeing a literal impression of his mother, saying that is really gonna, mentally just mess you up. Skyrus throughout the battle, tries to make sure he doesn't, fall into it. And because of these mind games, Shun is just the complete opposite of what he usually is. He's mentally out of the game, he's confused, he's grief-stricken. He's no longer, Mr. Hotshot himself. He's just a kid who can't get over the loss of his mother. Now with Runo, there's one thing every single Bakugan fan knows about her. She has an incredibly short temper.
Market research? Don't make me laugh. You barely have customers, never mind a market.
Oh, you!
And this is what Last Line tests her on by summoning Dan as a child. Because after all, there is nothing more annoying in this world than a 5-year-old that won't leave you alone.
You got games on your phone?
Fuck off, Tails.
Throughout the battle, Last Line keeps making a depiction of Dan deliberately trigger Runo to get her angry and throw her off. Tigrera throughout all this fully trusts Runo and keeps trying to calm her down, but most of the time it doesn't really work too well. It doesn't help that throughout the battle, Last Line is basically just reading her mind, so the little Dan knows exactly what move she's gonna play and leads her into quite a few different traps, which leads Runo to end up crashing out and even get a bit mad at Tigrera. It takes Runo nearly losing Tigrera to realize that maybe she shouldn't be so goddamn angry all the time and hot-headed, and it just took all that for her to evolve and then win the battle. Then with the power of friendship, he casually just causes an earthquake. And you wanna know something else I found really funny? I found out, thanks to the YouTuber called Into the Narrative, that in the Japanese version of the Bakugan Battle Brawlers, Runo in this scene confesses her love for Dan and explodes the goddamn planet. Meanwhile, in the English dub, she just friend zones Dan and also explodes the planet.
We're friends forever, Dan! Friends forever! And nobody in this great big crazy world can change that! Nobody! You hear me? Forever! No!
That a girl, Runo?
So yeah, dance bit. He beat Apollinaire. And also a clown. Anyways, after every Brawler's trial, they all got a chance to have their Bakugan evolve. Or in Marucho's case, Preyas pooped out another Bakugan. But Dan actually failed his test, so Apollinaire offered an alternative. Beat all of the Brawlers, aka his friends, in a battle. In episode 35, Dan reveals this information to them, and understandably, they're just kind of shocked. But then Julie comes up to him, challenges Dan, and leading to her loss. Then for Marucho too. But while this is happening, we also see that Masquerade is also in the Doom Dimension. And Dan ends up beating Runo and Shun and wins and evolves his Bakugan. Since I kind of mentioned him earlier, I may as well just do a quick little bit about Masquerade's adventure into the Doom Dimension. He goes to Doom Dimension and basically his trial is to literally just beat Alice. And this trial is just a huge, big ass foreshadowing to, Masquerade just being Alice. And leading into episode 38, we are greeted to an opening scene of Alice waking up in a foggy area outside of Wardington and being greeted by Runo. And that's it. We don't see a scene of Hydronoid getting involved until the battle with Dan, where we find out that Hydronoid has grown yet another head. So when you actually sit down and really look at the Doom Dimension arc as a whole, it is not just some basic generic filler where the characters just fight illusions that only they can see in a very specific dimension at this specific moment in time. It's a pretty well written set of emotional episodes dedicated to really flushing out the characters and to help them feel more natural, which helps people who are watching the show feel more relatable to the characters. Some people, even though they're young or even older like me, will probably watch the show maybe and, you know, see that, oh, this character lost their parents when they were young. This character really struggles with their self-image, and, you know, this guy, he was one of those yes kids growing up. It really draws you into the characters and makes you sort of, you know, be like, huh, I was kind of like that too. Anyways, if you want to see some more Bakugan content, please check this video playlist out here. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, have a good day, and goodbye.